Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this opening plenary of the Global Solutions Summit. Please join me in welcoming our distinguished panelists today, Mr. Chinoy, Mr. Sonobi, Ms. Lucinda Trigo-Gamarra, and Mr. Colm Kelly to join the stage. Thank you. Hi. So, very happy to be meeting in person, all of us together today. We are gathered to discuss, as Professor Snow was saying, the urgent need for societies to realign to a sustainable, inclusive, and common future. So, as we know, the challenges we face are very complex, multifaceted, so I'm sure we are going to have a very provocative conversation to set the stage for the next 2 days. So our distinguished panelists today bring a wealth of knowledge and experience from corridors of power to activism and corporate responsibility. So I'm sure we'll have a very multidisciplinary conversation today here. So let me start by Sujan. You are well committed to T20 this year, co-chairing this network. What is your first thought about the priorities this year for the T20 in setting global cooperation?
Well, thank you very much for this invitation. Das ist mein erster Besuch in Deutschland. Und ich freue mich sehr, hier zu sein. Danke für Ihre Einladung. Thank you very much for this invitation. Let me begin by firstly stating the obvious that the G20 for India is an exceptionally different one. It is aimed at building consensus on the fundamental principle that the entire world is one family. So that's where we proceed from. Therefore, our logo, as you know, is One Earth, One Family, One Future. Now, the problem with realigning societies is that you could as well have said realigning nations. I don't quite think the Westphalian notion of a nation-state is past. It has evolved differently in different geographies. Europe, in fact, is very different from other parts of the world. Here, it is more appropriate to speak of realigning societies which have a transnational connotation and which also bring in the intrinsic role of civil society, of big business, big tech, etc. But in Asia, the geography from where, for instance, I come, there are other contextual things that are very important, such as history, civilization, the ability of Asia to have, for instance, made great progress on the economic front, but having failed to build a common security architecture. Some might say that is now proving to be true of Europe as well. So when you speak of realigning societies and from the perspective that we have of treating the world as one family, the short point here is that the global architecture that we have put in place since 1945, it's not easy to dismantle. In fact, global orders do not change because of a change of heart. They normally change because of large events, economic, political, military, cataclysmic events at times. That's been the history. We have seen that the structure that's been put in place in 1945 has failed to deliver, essentially because of great power contestation, but more fundamentally because of the intrinsic exceptionalism and privileged positions that are inherent in the system. I mean, I was reading that the UN Charter, which is actually supposed to be the final realignment for all of us after that disastrous war, and which is not quite in place yet, the Charter would not have been agreed upon had the powers not agreed on what you call the veto power. So in fact, at that point of time, history tells us that it was an exchange, a deal in exchange for some people retaining the veto power. To conclude my opening remarks, India, in fact, believes that this is not an era of war. This is an era in which we must actually have conversations. And it is not enough to simply say that this is a conversation between democracies and autocracies. There is a spectrum out there. When we look at the global international order, the rules-based international order, or democracy, there are views and there are different types of democracies being practiced, hybrid democracies as well. And so instead of having a pitched battle today between either civil societies in one part of the world and governments in another part of the world, or between democracies and autocracies, what we really should be doing is sitting across the table and trying to build a broad consensus on the key issues that challenge us today. Fundamentally, the ones that were outlined by Mr. Dennis Snow in his remarkable opening remarks, such as, for instance, the challenge of climate change, or economic recovery, or, for instance, having a digital public infrastructure in the industrial revolution, the fourth industrial revolution, that does not make for a digital colonization. Having had industrial revolution 3.0, which was a manufacturing kind of revolution, it did give people a chance to catch up. But then not everyone has benefited equally from globalization either. The outliers today are not simply outliers because they didn't want to be part of globalization. They haven't had a fair chance. And if we continue down this road, we will not be able to build any kind of future of the type that India envisages. One earth, one family, one future. The entire world is one family.
Thank you, Sujan. Thank you so much.